Well, we are certainly paying more than we'd like to for gas, but how good is the fuel we're actually putting into our cars?
Well, it is a question the 8 News Now I-team wanted to answer. We sent samples from all across our valley to get tested, and along the way we learned how gas stations are keeping this commodity safe. With record gas prices, we wanted to know, are Las Vegas gas stations providing quality fuel? Our project started with getting samples from 12 different locations. We took just enough to fill up even smaller containers to send to 2 different labs, each one sealed, labeled, wrapped, and packaged. Then all our samples were off. What do you guys do in terms of the gasoline testing?
It's primarily designed to catch things like water contamination or dirt contamination.
Ryan Stark is the president of one of the labs we paid to test your gas. Blackstone Laboratories is based in Indiana. They took our samples, running each one for water and other deficiencies. Are most of the samples you guys test good gas?
And usually stuff coming out of the pump's pretty good.
And that's what we found. Here's how each sample turned out. We started with the Green Valley Grocery on Charleston and Buffalo. Next, we tested the Funnies at Gowan and Rancho. Next, the 76 at Patrick and Rainbow. The Smiths at Windmill and Eastern. The Rebel at Flamingo and Paradise. The Arco at Fremont and Eastern. The Sinclair near Cheyenne and Losee. The Chevron at Charleston and Rancho, the Terribles at Westcliff and Rainbow, the 76 at Sahara and Fort Apache, the Shell at Twain and Fort Apache, and finally, the Sinclair at Warm Springs and Gillespie.
We're in a dry environment, so to have water intrusion is very, very unlikely.
David Crawford is president of Green Valley Grocery, one of the largest gas station companies in the valley and home to 2 of our testing locations.
If you had water contamination, you're going to have broken down vehicles, and you can't have that.
Crawford tells us why it's so important for stations like his to make sure water and other debris isn't getting into his tanks. We found out it's really hard for that to happen.
So every tank in the ground is basically a tank inside of a tank.
First, Crawford showed us this panel, which monitors the amount of water in his tanks. Each tank holding tens of thousands of gallons of fuel bound for your car.
Anytime that number is anything besides 0, this tank's going to set off an alarm.
It also will email company leaders, notifying them of an issue. But there are even more safeguards.
We're always here, we're always working.
Outside, Crawford shows us these filters in the pumps that will swell up if they detect water. And the massive tanks themselves are sealed and double-lined.
And then the space in between the 2 tanks has monitoring on it. So if there's any liquid of any kind, whether it be water or fuel, it'll set off an alarm.
The fuel coming into the valley is also not an issue. 2 pipelines from California and Utah bring gasoline to the valley. It's then mixed with each company's additives, their special sauce per se, before it is sent on its way to a gas station near you.
That's why we go through all these steps to keep the fuel safe.
Ultimately, we learned most gasoline issues aren't occurring at the pump, but are happening after the gas is already in your car. Issues can arise when someone puts water in your tank or somehow sediment gets into your engine. Take it from the guy who tests it.
It can happen, but most of the time it's in good shape, and the samples that we see are kind of outliers because they're looking for problems, and sometimes there are problems in there.
And Denise brought up a good point. She said, why didn't you go to Costco? And truthfully, it's because the line was so long, it was going to take way too much time. So there are professionals who go out and basically do what we just did and get those gas samples. That test is usually just a visual one, looking for water and sediment in like a clear bottle. Coming up on Thursday night, we're going to show you how those inspectors do their jobs and how and when they cite stations. That's coming up Thursday right here on 8 News Now.